Joining us today, Labour peer Aisha Hazarika, Conservative MP, former Foreign and Home Secretary James Cleverly, The Guardian's political editor Pippa Crerar, and former Conservative advisor Gitto Harry. This is Politics Live. Hello and welcome. Well, let's start with this headline in BBC News. You heard it at the beginning of the programme.
Many years, the public won't be paying any attention at all to who's responsible. What they will see is that there's a Labour government in power and that figures have fallen dramatically. It is definitely the case that changes that were brought in under James made an impact. A dramatic impact. Most of those changes, bar one, I think it is, you were saying earlier, have been continued by this government. So they will also probably be putting their hands up and saying it's down to us too. And what I think is really interesting is how migration, which has always been one of the sort of the big top 3 or 4 issues amongst voters, has in the last couple of weeks really sort of shot up the agenda. Cost of living is still the top, obviously. But we saw Keir Starmer's immigration plans the other week. His sort of pitching to the right, which makes many in his own party feel very uncomfortable, to me seems there's a direct line between the rise of Nigel Farage and reform and this number 10's response to that. And those voters are very uncomfortable with some of that rhetoric. So it's about making sure that while you have the action, the numbers coming down, the rhetoric matches that in that regard. And the threat that some people perceive to be from China and their relationship with Mauritius, it was a bit of sovereign territory slap bang in the middle of the Indian Ocean in a really geopolitically sensitive part of the world. Why are we stepping back from that is the question. And it kind of goes, I think, to some quite fundamental issues of what is Britain's broader role in the sort of the geopolitical security map.
Well, let's go to a fundamental issue here. And this headline in The Independent: violent criminals could be released from prison early under new plan. The Independent Sentencing Review, which was carried out by former Conservative Lord Chancellor David Gauke, it's finished, and recommended that violent prisoners, including those convicted of sex offences and domestic abuse, some of them could be released after serving just a third of their sentence in a bid to ease prison overcrowding. And to give you and remind you of the context of overcrowding, figures in April showed that fewer than 1,000 spare prison cells were available across England and Wales, only 961 to be precise, and prisons were 98.9% full. But Gitto, can the government persuade the public that sometimes prison just doesn't work?
I wouldn't say spilt milk.
No, about which decisions were taken by government, the difference between total numbers and rate, which seems pretty clear to me. But at the moment, your government is proposing to release some of these rapists early. That is something we should focus a lot more over than who did what in the past.
But it also would, just to be fair, it would also be worth pointing out that the last government also had occasions where it had to release prisoners, sometimes quite dangerous prisoners. And to me, what this all shows is that the system has not been fit for purpose. And it is not just about how you get people to avoid going into cycles of violence in the first place and ending up in prison and going back in afterwards. It's also about the court system, and we're going to hear some more from the government, I think, with the Levinson review in the next few weeks on, for example, I think 17,000 people are currently locked up in prison because they're on remand waiting to go to trial. You speed up the court system, you improve the court system, you can get some people out that way. I think everyone would be more comfortable with that than letting out serious, dangerous offenders. Also, you have the points about probation when they come out. And I think one thing we'd all agree on is that the probation service just doesn't have enough money.
Well,
and if they're being asked to
that was what I was trying to ask both Aisha and James, is that neither party is prepared or has been prepared to sort of dedicate the amounts of money. We haven't got time to go further on it. The amounts of money that would be needed to do all of the things that you have outlined in terms of probation and building. No.
James Timpson is a real expert on this. He is the
prisons
Minister in the Lords, and he is somebody who I think cross-party, you'd agree, he has got a lot of knowledge of this.
We're going to
subject.
return to the drama of yesterday at Prime Minister's Questions, because the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, actually made news by announcing a U-turn on that winter fuel payment story to pensioners. This is The Guardian. Starmer announces U-turn over winter fuel after fierce backlash. How did it come about, Pippa?
But you know, they have listened, and all the polling, I suspect their internal polling shows the same as the external, shows that the public does not regard these big U-turns, despite what, you know, journalists say about them, as a sign of weakness.
I want to ask
move on to the next thing.
Their MPs will move on to the next thing, and there'll be another crunch issue, and people will panic. But actually, I'm afraid, Jo, there's something far more important than even all of this, because this is Jo's last programme.
Oh,
and some
no.
people want to actually say a special sort of goodbye to you. So forgive this break.
Oh, it's Monday, it's 12:15 and we're live in Westminster. This is Politics Live, but the politics won't stop. Why should the common people listen to you, Jarvis?
Oh, they don't have to listen to me. I mean, I just turned up and spoke.
I think that's a slur on 17.4 million people.
It's not.
And I think you should apologise on national television.
And the big topic today, well, you've guessed it, it's top-up fees.
This new harmonious era.
We've only just begun.
Remember this?
What's that I hear? Oh, angled. Right, you're angled.
Yes, and this?
And in.
Oh, my God.
Get yourself in.
I'm in.
You've got to get physical.
Is it?
physical.
Right, we've got to look into that.
You look that way.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm so used to looking to the... Oh, head back. Right, how do we look?
Much improved.
Marvellous.
And then when Jo Coburn, the presenter, challenged him, and she had to challenge him 3 times, she said, where will you get the money?
And actually, the UK is better off in our growth numbers than France, Germany, Italy, USA, Canada, Japan.
Right.
Do you
Well,
want me to continue?
we're going to show, just before we let you go, this graph, which actually stands in stark contrast to what you've just said.
You seem to be a little exercised, sir.
Well, because I'm offended.
Her whole pitch to the Tory party was, I'm going to be a swashbuckling tax cutter.
I'm going to interrupt because he's out. He's been sacked. So Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor, when he can only have been in with Liz Truss for a matter of 10, 15 minutes, if we understood the timing correctly, he's gone. I can name all the companies, the recruitment companies, Hayes, Manpower, Randstad, they've signed the letter saying this is the wrong approach. You're going to put jobs at risk. Which are the companies that have welcomed your employment rights?
Well, like I say, I've spoke to many companies. We've had many roundtables with them.
Hang on. Grace, there is a point that Dominic Raab said that there will be a day of reckoning if Brexit doesn't happen. And there would be a day of reckoning, the implication is, if it went to a second referendum. The headline says, bonk for Britain. Women should get tax cuts for having children to encourage a baby boom, Cabinet Minister suggests. Luke?
As a gay man, bonking for Britain won't make much of a difference to the birth rate for me.
What do you say to consumers who literally can't afford to pay even for some of the basics if they've gone up the way that cheese sandwich has with all its ingredients?
Well, then you don't do the cheese sandwich.
That's it. I'm going to let them shout while I just say goodbye. I'll be back at 11:15 tomorrow. They're talking still. Bye. Well, now I know what everyone's been doing in the office over the past few weeks, why I couldn't find anybody to help me with today's programme. Thank you so much for keeping that secret. Very professionally done, I have to say, Gita. I did wonder what you were going to do at that particular point. And thank you for behaving, just about, the 4 of you, because as you've seen from that film, there were still many occasions where people almost didn't quite behave. Anyway, it is a final farewell from me after today's programme with my esteemed guests in my studio, I suppose I can still call it for the last time, displaying the sort of passion and humour and sometimes expertise on politics, but without a steady stream of all of you journalists, commentators, and people who have to promote books occasionally coming into the studio, there wouldn't be a programme. I've got to thank all of the guests who've come on, all of the people who work with me here, all the people I've learnt from over the years. It's been a brilliant experience. I will miss it more than I can say. Gitto, you're looking at me appealingly as if you have something to say.
No, just to say you're now going to be more free for lunches. And we can start the lunches earlier. So
I'm not sure my waistline can actually afford it, but I also have to say thank you to all the viewers, the nearly millions of them, thanks Mum, for watching every day loyally. It's been great getting all the emails and messages, not all of them flattering and complimentary, but I'll take the good with the bad, as always. So perhaps for one final time, goodbye, take care, have a very good afternoon.